And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to connect one end of the red jumper cable to the positive terminal on the stalled battery. Red on dead. Now we're going to move over to the good battery and connect the other red cable clamp to the positive terminal on the good battery. All right.
It's a handy skill your dad probably taught you, and that is how to jumpstart a car. But what if it's your retirement plan that needs a jump? Do you know how to get it going if it seems to have a dead battery? Well, you're about to learn. It's that time again, time to tune out the hype and focus on the facts. Yes, facts that matter to you, the income generation. Let's get started. Get ready to separate reality from myth.
With us, David Scranton.
David Scranton.
David Scranton.
David Scranton.
But David Scranton says, hey, not so fast.
How does it affect the markets? How does it affect the economy? Thanks to efficiencies and new technology and a staff of veteran analysts and portfolio managers, Sound Income Strategy strives to set new standards and bring institutional style investing to your portfolio. Year after year, we seem to see the same scary statistics about the state of retirement savings here in the United States. In fact, according to a report by the Employee Benefit Research Institute, 1/3 of households have nothing saved for retirement. Of those who have managed to accumulate some retirement savings, 54% have less than $25,000 in savings and investments. Now, hopefully, your situation is better than that. Still, however, you may be worried that your plan is insufficient, and you may feel that you're powerless to improve it. And it's that sense of weakness and helplessness that we're going to be talking about primarily on today's show. We'll share a toolkit of tips and ideas for jumpstarting your retirement savings. We'll also revisit some essential retirement planning steps to remember once your batteries recharge and your engine is once again up and running. Joining me will be Cathy Dewitt Dunn, President and CEO of Dewitt and Dunn Financial Services. She's a retirement planning and annuity specialist. She also hosts the nationally syndicated Dewitt and Dunn Financial Services radio show. Along with Jerry Slusiewicz, the founder of Pacific Financial Planners. He's also the host of Your Money Talks radio show. But first, let's talk about some of the reasons why so many Americans may need to jumpstart their retirement plan, but feel powerless to do so. Though most people don't talk about it in their day-to-day lives, a recent Northwestern Mutual study found that 78% of Americans said they are extremely, or at bare minimum, somewhat concerned about not having saved enough for retirement. According to other recent studies, 75% of retirement-aged Americans have less than $30,000 in savings. 1 in 6 older Americans actually live on less than $22,500 per year of income. Americans aged 55 and over actually account for 20% of all bankruptcies, often because of medical and funeral expenses. Now, to top it off, 1/3 of all Americans have zero confidence that they'll be comfortable in retirement. So again, hopefully your situation is a lot better than some of these examples. However, even with those who are confident about retirement, they still may have an underlying sense of worry, a feeling that they simply haven't done enough and still aren't doing enough to increase their confidence. So why is that? What's the reason for this? Well, not surprisingly, the most common reason people give for why they aren't saving more is that their day-to-day expenses eat up pretty much any extra money that they could be able to invest for retirement. And I think in many cases, this is understandable. We all have responsibilities to ourselves, to our children, to our grandchildren, to our aging parents, and they're often financial in nature. Now, making matters worse is the fact that until very recently, wages have been largely stagnant for many Americans, and at the same time, the cost of living has continued to climb. Now, on top of all that, some baby boomers have suffered personal and professional setbacks, such as a business failure or divorce, and these setbacks have taken a financial toll. However, these aren't the only reasons a retirement strategy can lose power and stall out. Here's the truth. There are plenty of people who earn enough to save, but simply don't make it a priority. As Cheryl Garrett of Garrett Planning Network says, it's the American way to spend 100% of what we bring in. Now, for many people, yeah, that's true. So the challenge for them is more psychological than it is financial. But there's also another psychological hurdle that's quite common, which is that the very idea of accumulating a comfortable savings can seem too daunting. A middle-aged man may read or hear advisors talk about $1 million being the bare minimum for a retirement nest egg in today's economy. And that same man might think, I'll never make it there. So why bother even trying? These are all real issues, no doubt. But the good news is that no matter your current financial situation, and regardless of the psychological and real-life hurdles, there are things that you can do to overcome obstacles and to begin making improvements today. There are ways that you can jumpstart your saving strategy, even if the battery appears to be completely dead, and even if you feel powerless. Now, there's one caveat I should mention, and that's that the sooner you can start implementing some of these strategies, of course, the better. Now, if you're in your 50s or early 60s, again, it might feel like it's already too late to jumpstart the battery and improve your situation, but that doesn't have to be the case. If you're in your 40s or early 50s, you still actually have a decent amount of time left to get that engine going again, but you have to start now. The best place to start is having a budget. To really get a handle on your expenses and have any chance of earmarking money to set aside for retirement, you must have some type of monthly budget. Now, this isn't, in most cases, necessarily the top-down budget analysis I often talk about for determining retirement income needs. In fact, we'll discuss that more later. This is a basic zero-based budget in which you simply add up all your income and all your expenses, subtract the expenses from the income until you get a zero balance. This way, each dollar that you earn has a purpose, which makes it much less likely to be squandered on non-essentials. Your budget will also help you make your retirement savings a priority. The old principle of paying yourself first still holds true, and seeking the guidance of a financial advisor early in this process of retirement planning is a smart strategy for jump-starting your plan. And it's someone who can help hold you accountable to that plan also. We'll be talking about this coming up in just a bit. Right now it's time to welcome our first guest, Cathy Dewitt Dunn, President and CEO of Dewitt and Dunn Financial Services. She's a retirement planning and annuity specialist with 2 decades of experience. Cathy is also the host of the nationally syndicated Dewitt and Dunn Financial Services radio show and has been featured on networks like CNBC, CNN, and Fox News. Cathy, thanks for being here with us today.
Well, David, thank you for having me.
So tell us, in your opinion, why do you think today a lot of the people that you talk to on a regular basis that maybe you're meeting for the first time why they feel like they're so far behind on their retirement savings and their retirement goals?
A lot of people now with employer-sponsored plans aren't really what they used to be, and defined benefit plans. So a lot of people have changed careers multiple times over the last 2 or 3 decades, and they're just behind in retirement savings. And that's really causing a crisis in America for people that are looking to retire in the future.
Yeah, and Madison Avenue has done a pretty good job at figuring out how to separate us from our money, have they not?
Absolutely. And that's the scariest part, right?
Yeah. And it's the old adage, pay yourself first. If you figure out how much you can save, you pay yourself first, you can spend the rest with a clear conscience. So I think sometimes, even as financial advisors, people like you, people like myself, we get too cutesy, and sometimes we forget the basics. Things like pay yourself first. Do you find that to be true too amongst many financial advisors?
I do, but I think a financial plan really comes down to having a budget, and that should be your first line item is pay yourself first, right? An active savings plan. Because it's not like you can show up to the bank or Wall Street and say, let me finance my retirement. You need to start in being active now. That way you can accrue money over the next, decade or 2 decades. So you're going to have a great nest egg when you are going to retire.
I don't know if you've seen this or not, but I've laughed because really it's been over the last 35 years, that all the fancy financing of goods and services have gotten to a point now where people can afford to buy things they didn't think they could afford before. They advertise boats on television, and the boat isn't $111,000. The boat is $529 a month. And I feel like we've created this bubble of demand over the last 35 years in our economy, which is also why we're having such a tough time getting the economy going right now.
Yeah, but don't also forget that $529 probably is going to be for the rest of your life on that boat. So, I mean, if you can pay yourself first, what we were just saying previously, but I think the challenge is that everybody's trying to stay up with the Joneses. You got look at the millennials, they're spending a lot of money. And, we have second and third homes now, but you really need to focus in on strategies that you can grow your money and have it safely there for your retirement later down the road. Don't you find that that's the one thing that people are leaving out of the equation?
I do, and it's just not making it a priority. And $529 a month doesn't sound bad until you say the forever part of it. So we need to take a quick commercial break. Stay with us, Cathy. And you stay with us too. We'll be right back in a moment, right here on the Income Generation. We'll be right back.
Would you take your grandchildren out for ice cream and try to pay for it using your stock certificates? No, that would be ridiculous. Instead, you would use your income. So why then do so many retirees make one of the biggest financial mistakes, dipping into their savings instead of relying on income during retirement? The good news? It's completely avoidable. To learn more, visit theretirementincomeStore.com.
Financial experts have predicted that the next major recession could happen as early as this year. What would you do if it took half of your retirement savings with it? I'm David Scranton, founder of Sound Income Strategies. And there is a safer way, investing for income. By focusing primarily on non-stock market income-generating investments, you could significantly reduce the impacts of the next major recession. Visit the Retirement Income Store at soundincomestrategies.com to connect with an income specialist who can help you get started to an income-based retirement plan.
Visit theretirementincomeStore.com today to find out how you can rescue your retirement. The road to retirement is filled with twists and turns, and life's unexpected detours could easily throw you off course. That's why it's essential to work with a financial advisor who is also a fiduciary experienced in helping clients navigate the complexities of retirement planning while helping you pay yourself first. The road to retirement now made simple. To learn more, visit theretirementincomeStore.com.
Raindrops are falling on my head, and just like the guy whose feet are too big for his bed, nothing seems to fit. Those raindrops are falling on my head, they keep falling. So
What? I was listening to the music. Who shut that off? Question though is, do you have a rainy day fund? If not, it's another important item to have in your toolbox when jump-starting your retirement savings. And ideally, you want to have about 6 months worth of basic living expenses always on hand in some sort of liquid account, like a savings account or a money market, for example. And this money can be used in the event of an emergency, like a job loss or a health crisis, or perhaps even to cover unexpected expenses like automobile or roof repairs. According to a recent Merrill Edge survey of baby boomers, unexpected costs were the biggest factor competing with their retirement savings plans, even more so than paying for a child's education or paying off large debts. Not having a rainy day fund increases the chances that you'll have to turn to credit cards or other forms of borrowing when an emergency arises. Now, obviously, increasing your debt is not going to increase your retirement savings battery's life. In fact, it'll do just the opposite. With that in mind, make paying down your debt a top priority. Right up there with keeping a budget and having a rainy day fund. Remember, your total net worth is the sum of your assets minus your liabilities. If you're ignoring that second part, you're only fooling yourself. And as you pay down your credit card balances, it's also important not to incur new debt in the process. Stick with cash or debit cards and stay within your budget. If you know you're easily tempted, some might recommend putting your credit card somewhere out of easy reach. Some people actually put them on ice in the freezer. Now that may seem like an extreme thing to do, but that way they can be thought out, so to speak, for use if absolutely necessary. But they're not quite as accessible for impulse purchases. Now hopefully you don't have to go that far, but let's face it, paying down debt and avoiding more debt is an important strategy for jumpstarting your retirement savings. Now that said, you shouldn't defer building up your retirement accounts until the debt is completely paid off either. The two really have to go hand in hand. And they can go hand in hand with the right planning and the right strategy. So to put it simply, your savings efforts should be, and they should stay, on autopilot. Maximize your contributions to your company's 401k plan. About 1/3 of company plans offer an auto escalation function that allows you to increase your contributions automatically over time. If your company offers this, take advantage of it. In addition to maximizing your savings, you can also maximize your human capital. What does that mean? Well, it means working longer. And many baby boomers are doing this anyway simply because they want to. However, it's obviously a great way to stretch your nest egg. Now, if you saw our recent show on Social Security changes and the Secure Act, then you know there's legislation on the table now that would allow older workers to continue making tax-deferred contributions to a traditional IRA. And to be able to do this after the age of 70 and a half, which is the current cutoff. Now, that's hopefully further incentive. But, many can't imagine staying at your job until age 70 or beyond. And if you're one of those, you might consider retraining for another, even if that means putting your retirement savings on pause for a short period of time. And let's face it, there are plenty of job opportunities for older Americans right now, and many baby boomers are going on to have second careers. These jobs can dramatically improve their financial situation and often give them more satisfaction even than they had in their old careers. Now, while these are all broad, longer-term strategies you can use to help jumpstart your retirement savings, there are also some things you can do in a single afternoon that will help. Start by checking your bank account and credit card statements for unnecessary spending. Be on the lookout for automatic charges coming from service providers that perhaps you may no longer be using but are still paying for. This can be a significant problem in today's digital age, and collectively these fees can add up. Next, review your insurance policies. Make sure that the coverage you have is appropriate for your current situation. Identifying insufficient insurance plans can lead to savings that can be redirected toward your retirement savings. And finally, take a close look at all your savings resources and consider whether any might be partially or entirely shifted into a qualified retirement account. In these types of accounts, your money can grow more efficiently due to tax savings. And again, as a general rule, the sooner you can start discussing your situation with the right retirement planner, the better. It's time to welcome back retirement planning specialist, Cathy Dewitt Dunn, President and CEO of Dewitt and Dunn Financial Services. Cathy, thanks for sticking around.
Well, thanks for having me.
So I'm sure as you talk to your clients about, there are a couple of stages as you're accumulating money throughout your life. There's the accumulation stage, and then ultimately there's an income stage. When do you tell people that they should, as a general rule, that they should start making that transition from investing for growth to investing for income, from the accumulation stage to the income stage?
Yeah, they're very different things, right? You've worked your whole life to accumulate this money, and now you've got to take money off to live on. So you need to make sure that you have a strategy in place that cannot go down in value while you're looking at taking income. Because if you have an asset that can go down and you're taking out income, it's mathematically going to be impossible later down the road to make up for that. So we need to make sure that we replace our paychecks so then we can have fun in our retirement years with our kids and our grandkids.
So I agree 100%. I guess the question becomes, how much harder is that getting, right? I mean, the 10-year Treasury yield less than a year ago was 3.25% on a 10-year government bond, and today we're down close to 1.5%. And that pushes payouts out from all types of fixed income investments. It pushes payouts out from annuities. How much more of a challenge is this now creating for people who are trying to plan for retirement today versus many years ago?
Oh my gosh, it's such a huge challenge. If you take a look at Morningstar, now they're suggesting that you should take about a 2.6% of your investable assets if you want to, maybe be okay during retirement. But that doesn't sound like fun to me. With the 10-year Treasury being so low at the moment, what we need to do is look at guaranteed lifetime income plans so that we don't have to worry about this later down the road. We know that we have our paycheck coming in. It's guaranteed for our lives or our spouse's life. And we don't want to be worried about all these things, right? We don't need to worry about what the Fed's going to do next month or what they're going to do next year because we just can't plan our retirement that way.
And I know that you're an annuity expert, and as a result, annuities, of course, when they do give you guaranteed income, I mean, they're really the only thing that does. And they also have you spending down your principal, or at least some of your principal in most cases. But for most people, that's really not the end of the world, is it? Because most people want the income first, and if they leave something for their heirs, it's okay, but it's not their number one priority. Am I missing anything?
Absolutely not. And I mean, you don't put 100% of your money in the annuity, but you put a majority of it, right? That's the money that you want to make sure that you have all your fixed income expenses are covered, your entertainment, and all the things that you want to plan on throughout your retirement years. But the biggest challenge for people is there's so much bad publicity about annuities, and I just wish people would open their mind to a new idea. They have totally changed. And now we can replace our paychecks. We don't have those pensions anymore. And it's the freedom to be able to go out and enjoy our retirement years and not having to worry about what's in our brokerage accounts, what's happening in the economy.
100%, I agree completely. We need to take another one of those pesky commercial breaks, but Cathy will be back in a minute. And you stay with us. We'll be back here with more on the Income Generation. I'm David Scranton, and you're watching The Income Generation. Once you've taken some steps to jumpstart your retirement savings and to get that engine running again, you can then turn your attention to other things. Specifically, you can focus on the 10 essential steps to preparing for retirement, which we've shared previously on the show. But they're worth repeating as part of today's program with the same small disclaimer. This list represents retirement planning boiled down to the absolute bare essentials, and I hope you understand is not meant to be any sort of comprehensive guide. As I stress over and over again, there are so many factors and challenges to consider in retirement planning that the best way to approach it for most people is in partnership with a qualified financial professional, ideally one who specializes in retirement income. So with that in mind, let's now run down our 10 essential steps to preparing for retirement. The first, we've already mentioned today, eliminate as much debt as possible before you retire. Some debt's okay, yes, but studies show that carrying too much debt into retirement and accumulating more debt during retirement can be major problems for many Americans. Next, identify your specific retirement goals. Do you plan to travel? If so, to where? Will you be spending more time on your favorite activities? And if so, which ones and how much time and how much they cost? Be as specific as possible. Number 3, I briefly mentioned earlier today. Do a top-down budget analysis to determine how much lump sum savings you'll need for retirement, factoring in your specific goals. And remember, a top-down budget analysis involves calculating all the expenses that will go away after you retire. Things like the fact that you don't have to pay your FICA tax anymore, and hopefully, your principal and interest on your mortgage payments either once you retire. Next, calculate your Social Security income based on taking benefits at the optimal time. Figuring out when to start taking your benefits can be one of the most critical retirement decisions that you make. And it's something the right advisor can help you do based on your age, earnings, goals, and other factors. Next, reduce your stock market risk by making the strategic shift from focusing on portfolio growth to retirement income. That's more important than ever in today's highly volatile market. And we'll be discussing that more coming up in just a bit. But next, make sure your asset allocation is proper for your required minimum distributions. Now that means an allocation that enables you to satisfy those RMDs from interest and dividends and minimizes the risk of spending down your principal. Next, estimate your long-term healthcare expenses and create a strategy for meeting them. Now this can be challenging, and it's important to understand that medical and healthcare costs increase at a much faster and steeper rate than the general rate of inflation. Next, create an estate plan with the help of a qualified estate planning attorney. No matter what your level of wealth is, an estate plan is vital for many reasons. Some of which, yes, are minimizing taxes, but it's more important than just that. How about avoiding probate? How about making sure your assets are protected under the law and they go to the people to whom you want them to go? Next, create a retirement lifestyle plan, one that will help ensure you enjoy good physical, mental, and emotional health after retirement. And finally, find the right financial advisor and work with him to address all these items, along with all the other factors that you need to consider to meet your goals and to enjoy your retirement. Now it's time for one last segment to welcome back Cathy Dewitt Dunn, President and CEO of Dewitt & Dunn Financial Services, a retirement planning and annuity specialist with 2 decades of experience. Cathy, thanks for sticking around. And you know, we don't talk about annuities much on this show, although they can be an important cornerstone to retirement planning. So what would you say are the 2 biggest reasons, whether they're deserved or undeserved, that annuities get this bad publicity that you were referring to just a few moments ago?
I think a lot of people think that, annuities are just riddled with fees. And if you take a look at some of the annuities that are on the market, believe it or not, you can have annuities that don't have fees. You don't necessarily always need a rider. And I think they're just misunderstood from the perspective as you cannot have any returns. That's the biggest thing I hear people right now that are saying that come to see me right now. Well, Cathy, if I put my money in the annuity, I've given up the opportunity to have a return. And I'm like, oh, that is absolutely not how they work. So you've got safety of principal, you have the ability to grow your asset, you're able to have income. It's not going to interfere with your retirement. So what other options do you have out there with this market being at an all-time high, with the 10-year treasury being at an all-time low? What are your options out there as you're approaching retirement?
Sure. And I always talk about the universe of bonds and bond-like instruments, and they promise, it's not insured, they promise income. But still, even if you bought a 30-year bond, that's only promised for 30 years. After that, you simply don't know. But the other thing, whether it's annuities or the universe of income-generating options, the reality is that almost all those things are more secure than the stock market. So let me get your thoughts on the stock market today. We're at a record high. The volatility seems to be getting pushed up a little bit. As of today, we're probably right about where we were with the record high from the beginning of 2018, over a year and a half ago. What do you see out there on the horizon?
I see a lot of fear, and a lot of people that are in the market are probably perhaps thinking about pulling out. We're at an all-time high. The market's gone up basically about 10 years. And based upon my practice, whenever we've seen an all-time high, it's usually followed by an all-time low. So, it might be a buying opportunity, but you have to take a look at the annuities that are on the market, that if we do have an all-time low, that you're going to be able to participate in the growth when the market comes back. But being able to have the safety, knowing that it's not going to interfere with your retirement years, and that you can go on and live your dreams and have great vacations and enjoy your retirement, that's what retirement should look like, not playing the stock market.
But are those fears right now, do you think they're founded or do you think they're unfounded? The president seems to be doing everything he can do to push the Federal Reserve to lower rates to keep the market artificially suspended. Economists say the economy's not really bad, we're doing well. Yeah, I know we're at a record recovery. So in summary, do you think those fears are founded or unfounded, let's say over the next year and a half or 2 years?
Well, I think those are all great points that you've mentioned, but I think as an investor, I don't want to put my retirement savings in the stock market. I think we all got burned, like a lot of the clients did, with .com, 9/11, 2008, and 2009. So you definitely, if you're worried about the market, as I am for my investors right now, you need to have a safety net, you need to have a safe haven, and the money that you need to have guaranteed lifetime income that's going to support you and your spouse and your family later down the road has no business right now being in the market, in my opinion.
So what you're saying is if you're part of the income generation, you're over the age of 50, don't worry about whether the market prognosticators say the market's going down or going up. Because at the end of the day, the stock market in general might not be appropriate for your goals if that's your stage of life.
Yeah, I agree with you. The markets right now are manipulated by computers, and the individual investor really doesn't stand a chance to be able to see some of the returns that we've seen in this market over the last several years. So if you can really look at the annuities now as a replacement to your bond, your money market, your CD, your safe money, where you can actually get some growth with the safety, which is the reason why you have them in that asset class to begin with, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised and you'll be able to enjoy your retirement years.
Good advice from Cathy Dewitt Dunn. Cathy, thanks for joining us today on The Income Generation.
Thank you for having me, David. Have a great day.
You too. You're watching David Scranton right here on The Income Generation, and we'll be
Visit theRetirementIncomeStore.com today to find out how you can rescue your retirement.
Now, you probably don't need me to tell you that there's a whole lot of fear and uncertainty brewing in the financial markets these days. In truth, it's not really happening out of the blue. It's been building for over a year and a half. Last year, the stock market had record high levels of volatility. Despite periodic rebounds and new record high, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, as of this recording, is once again below its peak high from January of 2018, as is the S&P 500 index. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve is back to lowering short-term interest rates in response to tumbling Treasury yields, yields that have created an inverted yield curve. All of this has been unfolding during a time when U.S. growth and job numbers have been consistently pretty decent. Now, as you know, I've talked at length about these issues on other shows and will continue to do so. I mention them today because this kind of market environment can create another psychological roadblock to preparing for retirement. With so much volatility and so much uncertainty throughout the investment world, some people start to think, what's the use? What's the point in trying to jumpstart my retirement plan if the stock market is going to tank anyway? If interest rates are falling and we might be heading toward another recession, why bother? Well, that kind of thought process can be understandable. It's also not the right mindset to have. As I've often explained on this show, as well as in my book, Return on Principle, this unprecedented age of economic uncertainty that we're in now is exactly the reason that investors over age 50 today must take action. Specifically, that means action toward making overprotection your number one financial priority. If that means having to jumpstart your retirement strategy first, then fine, start there. If you don't need a jump and you feel you're already at a good place in terms of accumulated assets, then start by focusing on those assets. Start by finding a financial advisor who specializes in reducing risk and helping you protect and grow your money, regardless of market conditions. Why? Because there's a flip side to the problem of having a stalled retirement plan, and that's complacency. Having that recommended $1 million or more, whatever it takes to hit your goals, already saved, can lead to overconfidence and a feeling that you've already done all you need to do to safeguard your retirement. But that number alone really isn't enough. You need the right strategies. Actively managed strategies designed to protect your money and to generate reliable income, even in highly volatile times like these. Now it's time to welcome our next guest, Jerry Slusiewicz, founder of Pacific Financial Planners. He's also the host of Your Money Talks radio show. Jerry, thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
So I always love picking your brains, whether it's here on the show or in our study group, because we tend to think a lot alike. But I'd like to get your own feedback as to why you think today so many Americans feel that they're behind the eight ball when it comes to retirement, and frankly, what they can do to fix it if they feel that way.
Well, again, it's a very complicated question, Dave, but the statistics are glaring that a lot of people are behind. The majority of people are behind on their savings. And I think they worry about it, but they don't take action. And sometimes it's the inaction that's causing the problem because, look, we're a consumer nation and people live for today and they're worried about now, and they always think that tomorrow will be the better time to start planning for the next day. And so they really spend way too much money for what they take in, and they make savings a final priority versus making it the top priority. The old adage is to pay yourself first, then pay your bills, and then see what's left for discretionary spending. But that lesson has not been taught to most American consumers.
So some are just not doing it because they want immediate gratification. I get that. But in the minute or so we have left in this segment, talk to us about the other group. The group that says, well, I know I need to do it, but I'm frozen with fear. I don't know where to start. I don't know what the best options are, so they do nothing. When those people walk into your office for the first time, how do you attempt to unfreeze them?
Well, the first thing I tell them is inaction is action. It's a decision. But what we start with is their budget. They really need to look at what they're spending and where they're spending their money, because that will help them understand if there's any room to create some freeing up of cash to put towards savings. So we start with the spending as opposed to the investment side of, what's the next best, stock or bond to buy. So that's really where they've got to start.
Got to start there. And then you have to make sure that Madison Avenue doesn't keep them from fulfilling that plan with all their great marketing efforts. So Jerry, we need to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back in just a minute. And we'll be back with you also. I'm David Scranton. I'm here with Jerry Slusiewicz on the Income Generation, and we'll see you in a moment. Welcome back to the Income Generation. We're here talking with Jerry Slusiewicz, founder of Pacific Financial Partners. He's also the host of Your Money Talks radio show. Jerry, Thanks so much for sticking around.
Thanks for having me.
So, it's funny, we were talking during a commercial break and you said, well, yeah, a lot of people come in behind the 8 ball and haven't saved enough for retirement. But then you said, sometimes I get as many people coming to see me who maybe saved enough, they did okay, but then they sabotaged it subsequently. Talk to us about how one could unwittingly sabotage their retirement, even if it appears on the surface as though they've done enough.
You're absolutely correct, Dave. There's 2 groups, those who haven't saved enough and then those who have, but they are kind of hypnotized by the stock market, because that in the last 10 years might have got them to the position that they're in now of having enough money. And they're afraid to change strategies, so to speak. And our industry has done a very poor job. If you look at any commercials for, Fidelity or Vanguard on TV, it's all save for retirement, grow for retirement, get to retirement. And if people have won and they've got enough savings for retirement, they need to change that strategy to income from growth. And if they're sticking in the stock market, especially this stock market today, they could sabotage their retirement, as you said, Dave, and really be in for some trouble and end up in that other group where they don't have enough.
Now, you heard earlier on the show, Cathy Dewitt Dunn talking about annuities as a great strategy because they have guaranteed income and they go on forever to go from the growth, the G, to the I, the income. But what are some other strategies? In the minute and a half or so we have left in the segment, what are some of the other strategies that you think are things that people should at least consider in the income world once they get out of the growth world?
Well, as you know, Dave, there's a world of alternative income strategies out there. And it's not just bonds, in which a lot of financial advisors sell bond funds in lieu of bonds. I think that's a bait and switch out there, another cautionary tale in our industry. But individual bonds, there are things like real estate investment trusts and business development companies and other things that pay income. Now, those are on the higher risk of income that people can do, but they're less risky than the stock market. And even a thing called preferred stocks is another area that people can look at as saying, hey, look, this is a way to get some income with some safety and not the volatility of the overall, traditional S&P 500 and the Dow Jones Industrial Averages.
But our income generation viewers don't have to worry so much about the how. They just need to know there's people like you out there that know how to do it, and they need to know that when they build up enough points on their balance sheet to win the game of life, if I like to say, i.e. have enough money to retire, they need to focus less on offense and more on defense. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in a moment here on the Income Generation. I'd like to thank both of our guests for joining us today for another episode of The Income Generation, but I'd also like to thank you, our new and returning viewers. The baby boomer generation faces many unique obstacles when it comes to saving and preparing for retirement. And for some, those obstacles can be daunting. We've shared a lot of statistics today that reflect just how hard it is for so many older and middle-aged Americans to get a good, strong retirement plan going and to keep it going. However, we've also seen that sometimes these obstacles are really more psychological than financial, and that regardless of the obstacles, there are steps you can take to jumpstart your efforts. You can start by making a budget and sticking to it. You can make sure you have a rainy day fund to ensure that emergency expenses don't eat into your savings. You can pay down your debt and avoid taking on more debt. You can also make sure you're maximizing your 401k and other retirement plan opportunities. Or consider working longer. Review your insurance policies. You can and should discuss your situation with the right financial advisor, regardless of whether you need a jump start or you feel that you already have a comfortable amount of savings accumulated. In fact, I would say that finding the right advisor is even more important in the second situation in order to avoid the dangers of complacency and overconfidence, which, yes, can be especially costly in today's uncertain environment. The right advisor can work with you to make sure that you're adequately addressing the 10 essential steps of retirement planning, you're avoiding costly mistakes, and creating a plan that meets your specific retirement goals. And just as importantly, He or she can work with you over time to keep that plan sound and viable in the face of ongoing market changes, as well as changes in your own situation. Retirement planning isn't a set it and forget it one-time done thing. It's an ongoing process that you, with your advisor's help, have the power to drive and the power to control. And to jumpstart when it feels like you've stalled out. Thanks for watching. If you're close to retirement and you really want to know how to protect and maximize your money, it's absolutely essential that you stay informed and up to date. And as you know, right here is where you can do it on the Income Generation. I'm Dewitt Scranton, and we'll see you next week. If you're near or in retirement, head over to the incomegeneration.com and download your special report written specifically for the needs of the income generation. Again, those born before 1966. I'm Dewitt Scranton, and you've been watching the Income Generation.